Studio 4 Media, and welcome to another tutorial inside of Maya. Today we're going to be creating some realistic clouds using fluid effects, and we're going to be creating something like this right here. And here's a rendered shot of it. You can take a look. So we got a sun right there shining through and our clouds around here. Alright, let's get started. Open up a new scene, and make sure you're in your Dynamics tab right here. And we'll go ahead and just create a new 3D container. Make sure you have your attribute editor open. You find it on the side here. If it's not there, you can hit Control A, pull it open, or Command A if you're on Mac. So you have that opened, and let's go ahead and just start making some changes here. What we're going to do is I'm going to go through and change a whole bunch of these settings here, but I'm going to also explain why I'm making these changes, not just give you the values you need in order to create this effect. That way you get an understanding of what you need to do in order to create these cloud effects, and that way you can make changes and you have the knowledge to make them in the future. So we'll start by turning off our keep voxel square. This is just so we can create a custom resolution, and we want something that'll fill up the entire area. So I'm going to start with something like 30 by 3 by 30, and we'll change our size to 20 by 2 by 20, and you can see that this just fills up the entire area, and that'll be a good starting point. Now it's important to remember that we keep our resolution the same values, and so let me explain what I mean when I say that. So if we go if we want to increase our resolution after we render this out, so that way we can have a better looking render, you can change the resolution to something like 50, but you want to make sure the center value changes with it as well to something like 5 and then 50. So for example, if I want to make it 60, I would go 60, 6, 60. So that just keeps it constant and the same as the side, so that way you don't get any weird stretching. You just want to make sure you keep those values the same distance apart. I'm going to go ahead and bring it back down to 30 by 3 by 30 just while we're working with it to make sure everything runs smooth, and we'll continue on. We got our resolution, we got our size, everything's good with that. Let's go down here, let's change our density to gradient, and you can see right away that that's just going to fill up our container here with the particles. And our density gradient constant, we'll leave that the same. We want it to be filled up with particles because we want our cloud to already be there whenever we play our simulation. So we don't necessarily want it to have to be born, the particles to be born, then fill up the container. We want it to already be birthed. That's why we did that. Velocity, we can go ahead and turn that off. Temperature, fuel, leave all that stuff off. That's if you want to make like an explosion or something that will react with fuel. Don't need any of that stuff. But let's go ahead and open up the display settings here, and let's change some of these settings. We'll just change this slices per voxels to a value of 1. That just makes it, you can actually just see what it does right here. It just splits it up a little bit more. If we had 2, it'd fill up 2 slices for each voxel. But we don't want that. We just want a value of 1. Boundary draw, let's go ahead and turn that off to none. That gets rid of our boundary box there. And we'll continue on. All these values right here you can leave the same, not really important. But what is important is the shading. This is where we're going to get into what our cloud's actually going to look like and give it the cloud look. Because if we render it out right now, what you're going to see is a giant blob, or big giant square of particles. So you're going to see it's just a square filled in with particles, and you can't even really tell. It just looks like a white square. So we're going to change that up here. First thing we're going to do, though, we'll just go down the list. So we'll change the color first, and then go into making the cloud shape. And start with this drop-off shape. We're going to change everything, for this example, to a Y gradient. So we want all of our values in this display shading tab to be a Y gradient. And I'll explain why here in a second. So we'll go to Y gradient, and I'll drop off shape, change it from cube to Y gradient. That's going to just give it a, from the bottom here to the top, because Y goes up and down. What this drop off shape does is puts like a mask around it, kind of. You can see here. So if I put it on sphere, you can see how it just puts a sphere around the entire thing, or a cone, for example. So our drop-off shape, we just want to be y gradient from the bottom to the top. And we'll change this edge drop-off. We'll make that a little bit bigger, and you're going to see here that it's going to just feather the edges a little bit better. That does, so we'll make it something like 0.37-ish. Just feather it out a little bit more, give the clouds a little bit of a fluffier feel. And we'll move on to the color here. And we'll just change this position to right in the middle. So 0.5 puts it right in the middle. And let's change this color to like a yellowish color, cream color. It's going to be the overall color of our clouds. Linear is fine, but like I said, we want to go ahead and change everything to that y gradient. So change the color input from constant to that y gradient. And the same thing go with the input bias. We're going to have the values of our input bias on all these be the same. I'm going to bump it up a little bit just to a value of 0.1. So just a little bit more on that. And let's go ahead and add another color to this y gradient. Only need one, not two. All you got to do is click out here and it'll add one, and you can just drag and drop it to where you want it. Somewhere right about here is good. And let's change that color to this purplish color. You can see what that does right there. So it kind of gives our bottom a purple color. And if I render this out, you're going to see the top will be white, the bottom will be purple. So, and that's the reason why it does it like that is because we set this to the y gradient here, bottom to the top. All right, moving on. Incandescence. We'll make some changes to that as well. Of course, we want to change the colors here. We'll put this one right in the middle as well, 0.5, and go to more of that cream color. And with this giant yellow, we can just bring that down to that cream color. Maybe a little bit more of a white cream. And then we'll go to the very edge, make one more to the very far edge on the right. Make that a darker blue color. So you can just click blue, bring it darker like that, somewhere around here. And this is going to go along the edges of our cloud once we get the shape of the cloud figured out. And again, change this to y gradient and our input bias to 0.1. And here we have our opacity. Now, if I render this out right now, you're not going to really be able to tell a difference. You can tell a little bit of difference in the shading. Along the edges here, we have that incandescence light kind of glowing. But other than that, nothing really special with this. Now, the opacity is where we get this shape. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to change this first selected position, be right in the middle, and you can see right away that our simulation disappears. And so we're going to make some adjustments to this. We're going to go ahead and change this and make a little selection here. So we're making this graph, and it goes really steep on the incline here. Starts out at a value of 0 and then goes straight up. And what this is going to do is going to break up our simulation. And so if I change this render, I think this is fine, density is fine. Let's change this input bias to a value of 1, and I think this does want to be, make it a y gradient as well. So yeah, y gradient's good. And let's take a look at this here. Alright. Didn't make the changes we wanted, and that's got to be because okay, we'll look at that later. Here's the problem. Well, I'll explain the problem as we move on. Let's continue going down the list for now. So we changed our color, changed the gradients all to this y gradient. Everything's looking good. The opacity is set how we want it. This is going to break up the the look of our clouds how we want. We can keep the interpolation at linear. That's fine, not a problem. But let's go down here and let's look at the textures tab. And before we do that, I guess we'll take a look at the shading quality, see how that looks. This looks pretty good. Maybe we'll bump it up the quality just by a little bit, maybe move it 2, and change this to smooth. Kind of smooth it out a little bit. So, alright, textures tab. We're going to give this a texture type of this Perlin noise right now, and we have to link it to the opacity. So we have to say texture opacity. Click that on. That's the problem we're getting. Let's make some changes here. Fixed coordinate method, yeah, that should be fine. Let's just make some changes right here though. Let's do the threshold. Threshold is okay at 0. Amplitude, let's bump that down just a little bit, maybe 0.9 for ratio is fine, 0.7. The frequency ratio, let's bump that up quite a bit, value of 3.75, so quite a bit. And our depth max, let's bump that up to a value of 4. And we want to increase this inflection as well. So we're just making some changes here to this texture type and just kind of give it a randomness, and let's see if that makes any changes as we render this out. There we go. So once we have it linked to our opacity, you can see that it now makes these changes and we get this cloud look like we want. Now obviously this is really, really low resolution, but you can see here the reason why. If I zoom in and re-render it, we textured it the way we did back in our color tab. So remember, we have along the edges here that purpley looking, and then towards the center you get more of that cream color. Now obviously this is really overexposed, so it's more of a white color, but we'll fix that here in a little bit. So it looks like these areas along the edges are more transparent, aren't reflecting the sun as much, and so yeah, looking pretty good. Now you can go ahead and change these colors to anything you want. If you want to have like a sunset look, maybe to a red-ish color, or if it's a rainy day, not so bright in the middle, make that a darker color. But this gives you a general idea. We're doing like a sunny, bright day. So moving on. Now we got our cloud look. Obviously, it still needs some work, but let's just continue moving down the list here in our fluid shape. So we get to this thing here called texture time. Right now, if we push play and we look at the frame 31, render this out. If we save this frame and we go to frame 93 or whatever, and we take a look at this frame, they're going to be the exact same. Nothing's changing with our simulation because we set it to constant. So you can see here, these are the exact same. Can't see a difference. Frame 93 and frame 31. And we want to change that. We want to be able to have this look like the clouds are going through the sky. So what we're going to do on this texture time right here, we're going to add an expression. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click on the texture time and say create new expression. And here we are in the expression editor. And all we need to do is highlight our selected object and attribute name and hit Control C to copy it. And down here in our expression, Control V, and we're going to make a simple expression that just basically animates our texture. So we'll go our fluid shape 1 and texture time equals time times 0.3. So what this is saying is whatever time it is, whatever frame it's on, it's going to times that by 0.3, and so as the frames increase, the time of our texture will increase, and it will give it a fluid movement, and it'll change the way the clouds look, so it looks like they're moving. Alright, we'll go ahead and hit create, and you can see what I'm talking about here. So apparently 93 times 0.3 is 1.63. Sounds about right. If I move this up, the value goes up. If I start at the beginning, the value is down. So what this does, if I render this out and then save this and move forward just a little bit and re-render this out, you're going to see a difference in the shape of the clouds. So obviously the clouds are moving up, and this kind of connected with some other ones, and it gives it a really fluid effect, and different particles can connect with other particles and create bigger clouds, which is what's happening right in here. So a really cool effect that's just done by a simple expression, and it just animates your clouds, gives them a fluid effect. So with that done, we'll go ahead and continue on and make some more changes in our lighting tab here. So we'll go ahead and turn on self shadow and bump up our shadow opacity to maybe 0.7. And what we're going to do here, you can see kind of where our clouds are at and how they're changing there. And this expression might be a little bit too fast. You can always decrease the value if you want to. But since we have this all set to a Y gradient, like I said before, everything's going from the bottom to the top. And so with our lighting here, we kind of want to change that up just a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change our directional light from 0.08 to negative 0.8. And that's just going to kind of invert it, so now we have light on the top and the bottom. And you can see here, if I play this through, you can see it on top as well. So with that done, let's keep on going down. Something that's also important in our object display, we want to go to drawing overrides and just enable that. You don't need to change any of the settings, but you just want to enable that. And if we enable it here, you want to go back to your fluid 1 shape, go to the display mode as well, to drawing overrides, and enable it there. And we'll render this out. And let's take a look. Alright, obviously looking pretty good. We got nice shading on there, still a little bit overexposed, but we're going to fix that right now. And I really like the way this is coming together. Let's go ahead and create a new light. Let's go to Create, Lights, and we're going to create a point light. Now with this selected, let's go into the point light shape attributes here. This is going to be our sun. So we're going to change this color from just plain white to kind of a little bit of a yellowish color. So not too yellow, but just give it a little bit of a yellow color. Let's bump up the intensity a little bit to the value of 1.2. And the decay rate, let's change that to linear. That way it doesn't really blow up our scene here. Light effects, go into here. We're going to add some fog. Obviously this is going to just add fog to our light, and so that way you can see like the light rays and light beams. Nice thing about this is I don't really have to explain what's happening because you can see it here in the sample. And so let's go in here to the light fog and click that box off to the right, and you can see now we have fog around our light. And we're going to bump up the density to a value of 4, so quite a bit of fog on there. And we want it to drop off fast though. So we have a lot of density, but it's going to drop off pretty fast. Turn that on, and that's basically all we need for that. Go back to our light. And of course we can name all this stuff if we want to, but we can name this sun if we want, because it represents our sun. Go back to our light. Our fog type, let's change that from normal to exponential. Our fog radius and our fog intensity looks pretty good, so if I go ahead and render this out right now, you're going to see our sun look kind of small, but and you see the fog around it as well. Oh, we did that. And you'll see here when it gets done rendering, it might add a little bit more of a glow to it. Okay, so we definitely need to add glow to this because this is looking pretty puny. So we'll go in here. This looks good, and right here under light glow, click that box off to the right as well, and we're going to add a glow to this. So we want to make our halo type exponential, and our glow type exponential and our halo type exponential as well. And you can see what that does right here in the sample. Just gives it a lot bigger volume, like it would be if a camera was looking up into the sun. That's what we're trying to emulate here. Frequency looks good. We can change our star points to maybe something like 10, bump it up a little bit, and you can see what that does. Just creates more of that sun look, and it looks pretty good. We'll go into our glow attributes here, and we'll change this color again to more of that yellow color. So something like that. That way our glow here just not pure white. It's just more of that soft yellow. Glow intensity looks good. Let's turn our spread up quite a bit. Maybe something like 10. You can see that really blows up our sample here, so we won't want something like that. But if we had it really bright, so we know that, hey, that's the sun, but then leaves the quality around it, that's what we're looking for. So let's go ahead and change some of these values. Glow noise, let's bump that up a little bit, value of 0.5. And you can see now we can see some of those texture around the edges here, but it looks kind of weird because this star points look weird, so we'll keep working on it. Maybe 5, 7. Alright, we'll keep working on it. Radial noise, let's go ahead and bump that up to no, we can leave that at 0. That's fine. Leave that at 0, but let's change the star level to a value of 0.6. Now this is going to make it be really bright as well. But if we take the opacity down, you might not be able to see it in the sample, but let's take the opacity down just a little bit, like 0.2. And that's actually looking pretty good. You got some more detail around here. It doesn't just completely overexpose it. It'll look pretty good in our final example. And let's go ahead and change some of the halo attributes as well. Our halo color we can leave the same, doesn't really matter. Our intensity, let's bump that up quite a bit, like 4. And wow, that's a lot. But if we change our spread and turn that spread down to a value of maybe like 0.2, now we start to get what we were after in the beginning, a really bright, white hot center with details still preserved around the edges. That's what we're looking for, because of course if this sample was bigger, it would show more of the clouds out here, and you'd be able to see the detail in those clouds without it being ridiculously bright. So that is what we're after. You can go in here, you can add lens flares and those kind of things if you want to. I'm not going to worry about that. That's a whole nother tutorial. But you can if you want. Just got to make sure that's turned on and tell you how you can adjust these lens flare settings. I'm not going to worry about it. So that looks pretty good with our light here. Let's go ahead and take a look at what this looks like if we render this out. Now we're going to get that effect that we were trying to get before, because our sun looks really small right now, but now that we have this glow and this halo radiating out, it's really going to fill up the spaces here. Boom. Now that looks really good. I like this look. Now obviously this quality is terrible. You can see right here we have really bad pixelation, and one of the main things I can see right away is that our background is black, and that does not look good. So I mean, maybe if you want to have a look into space, and you're looking maybe from the ground and it's nighttime and it's up into space, but then obviously we wouldn't have the sun here. So right now for what we're trying to create, the black background doesn't look good. But I want to point out something here with the changes we made to the sun. You can see what I like about the values we gave it, about having a really, really white hot, some of the radial edges spawning off here, is it creates this effect, and you can see it really good over here, and the dead spaces and it just makes it look like there's a little bit more clouds there, or atmosphere around it, maybe higher up, and it really fills in those empty spaces, gives it more of a full look. And you can see it really good right in here as well. So let's go ahead and fix the problem with having the black background. It's really a simple fix. If we go here to create cameras, create a new camera, and then go to panels, perspective, through our camera 1. Now we're just looking through our camera. Let's go ahead and, the example I showed, actually, I'll pull our light up here just a little bit. The example I show is actually looking from beneath towards our light, and that gives it a really sweet effect, like you're down underneath, and now the light is not above the clouds, or not below the clouds, but above the clouds, and then it'll shine through the clouds like this, and you get that really cool looking effect right in through here. This looks great. I love this frame. So let's go ahead and fix this this black background. All you gotta do in the camera settings, and let's go ahead and the channel editor, select our camera, and make sure we're looking through our camera. Go down here to environment. Right now the background color is set to black. We can just change that to a light blue color here. Something that looks like the sky, or whatever you're going after. Re-render this out, and you're going to see right away that it's going to change the background to the sky. Even though that it's changing it to a solid color, because of the way we textured the clouds, we have enough broken up inside of here that it doesn't look like it's all one solid color in the background. It looks really good. And we have that sun creating different colors in here. The cloud has a lot of different colors in it, the purple, the cream. This looks really good. Obviously, we need to bump up our resolution quite a bit, but that's what you do when you're working with these fluid containers, because they can really eat up your computer's memory and graphics card. If you don't have a good graphics card, it's gonna crash the program. So we'll bump it up a little bit so I can show you what I'm talking about here. I'll save this frame. You can see the pixelation. I'm going to come back here, select our fluid container. If we go to the very top, and we change the resolution from 3330, something like 9990, keeping that values similar, the same resolution, we'll go ahead and hit render again. Same frame, so we can really see the difference between the two of them. Now this isn't going to be perfect, but it'll be a lot better. I think the value I had when I showed you the preview image, the very beginning of the tutorial, was something like 500 by 50 by 500. So it was quite a bit higher, and when I changed it to that, my computer got a warning like, warning, you are losing a lot of space. So I wouldn't try that unless you have a really, really amazing computer. But even this right here, you can see right away, if I save this image, it looks 10 times better. Look at this area right here as I go change between them. Gets rid of that pixelation, even inside of here as well. Looks a lot better. You can still see a little bit, but unless you're doing some type of, movie, and you have amazing computers, this right here is this 9 by 9, 90 by 9 by 90 is pretty good, and most computers should be able to handle that. So anyway, that pretty much wraps up the tutorial. What's really cool is you can push play, and of course the higher the resolution, whenever you push play, the longer it's going to take, but you can push play, get different looks, and get the look you're going for. Like I said before, you can change the colors. If you want it maybe more of a sunset, you can change the color of the sun from a yellowish to a reddish color, orange color in the clouds even. Change the background on the camera from that blue to maybe a darker blue because the sun is going down. But all in all, that's basically it. Hopefully you learned something from this tutorial. You got something out of it. How to create realistic clouds, fairly simple, inside of Maya. Alright, my name is Tim Weaver, and I'm with Studio4Media.com, and I'll see you on the next tutorial.